and on day 4 we're going to be taking a look at Twilight of the Dark Master. So it's an OVA that's based after a manga that came out in 1991, and it is considered as a cyberpunk horror. So knowing that, let's start talking about the story. So it begins talking about some backstory on how the world became to be with a battle between demons and guardians. But no one seems to know any of this about demons and guardians, and obviously with the word guardian they protect the world from being destroyed by the demons. But in the future, unfortunately, there's only one guardian left, and that happens to be Tsunami. So he's the main character, and like I said, he's a guardian and his main duty is to protect the humans from demons. And he ends up getting involved with a woman named Shizuka, where recently she lost her fiancé. For that he was turned into a demon and he ended up eating her arm off. You know, come to think of it, what's up with older horror animes out there having like their arms eaten off? Just for an example, when I reviewed Biohunter, that also happened at the very beginning. I don't know, it's just one of those things I just randomly noticed, but anyways. She ends up finding out about Tsunami when she ends up meeting up one of his friends, being Tenku. And Tenku is the one that tells her about Tsunami and that he actually knows a lot about these demon issues. So he ends up looking around in the darkest places of Neo Shinjuku, and he later finds out that there's a lot of drugs going around where there are huge ass capsules where if you eat them you go really fucking huge, but then you die like shortly after. And from then on, he has to try to figure out who exactly is the one who is behind all these drugs, for that it is actually connected to Shizuka's case. And that basically sums up everything you need to know. It's a very basic plot. So not only is our main character a guardian, but he also kind of works like a detective almost. But before I move on, I should also mention that there are two characters in here that are twins that like to troll around the city, and that happens to be Chenglong and Huanglong. And for some strange reason, they kind of remind me of the twins from The Shining in the sense of like just the way how they talk. It's really weird. But yeah, there is a little bit of crime drama in here as well. So now let's start taking a look at other things like the animation. And for the most part, the animation in this one is pretty good. But I'd personally say that the best part about it would have to be the art style and the aesthetics. For that, not only do I really like the character designs and just the art direction in general, but I also really like the settings too. Everything just looks really awesome. But I suppose that's a given, for that I really do like the look of most cyberpunk animes. And the animation flow in general is pretty good, not the best for 1997, but definitely not the worst either, but I did think it was pretty solid. But the only complaint I do have with the animation is that I do find that the blood and the gore in this one is a little underwhelming compared to everything else. Not only does it just like not look nearly as good as everything else, but also there's just not a lot of it. Now obviously, I'm not expecting this to be like over the top batshit like something like Violent Jack or anything. But it's mostly for the fact that the blood in this one just really doesn't stand out at all in this one. But as I said, it's a pretty minor thing, but overall though, I do think that the animation in this one is pretty good for the most part. So now, as for the music is very forgettable to be honest. Like, there's really nothing much that stands out here, and hell, I don't even remember most of it at all. I mean, I do remember the background music of one scene was pretty atmospheric sounding, and it did sound pretty good for what it was, but other than that one thing though, I really can't say much. Also, the ending theme, I just really didn't care much about it, but I suppose it was alright. So now, as for the voice acting, if you're going to be watching this one in English, I have to say, the voice acting is very inconsistent. But I can't say all of it was bad though, because there were a few parts that were actually done okay. But even at that, it's still pretty disappointing knowing the cast here, because the exact same cast in here is also the same cast that also did Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust, and even Final Fantasy X. And like I said, for the most part, a lot of it isn't really good, but then there are some moments that do kind of save itself a little bit, but not by much. So yeah, if you do want to watch this one, I'd say just stick to watching in Japanese, for that not only would it be better, but also the English one is just not very good, it's not even bad enough to be funny. And I kind of wish they did go for that I really have a soft spot for cheesy ass voice acting that's just funny as hell. Just for one example being the Devilman OVA, where the English voice acting in that one is so fucking bad that it's fucking hilarious, and it's still entertaining as hell. But for this one, not so much, it just comes off as just dull. So now, as for my overall thoughts on Twilight of the Dark Masters, is that It's just kind of alright, I guess. I mean, I really have no idea what to think of this one, to be honest. But here's the main thing, is that I don't think this one is, like, terrible or awful or anything, but I also didn't find it to be that good. Like, the concept was fairly interesting enough, like, at least I wasn't, like, bored with it for its entire, like, 45-minute runtime. But my main problem here is that I do find that the characters in this one are just really not that great. I mean, they're not horrible by any means, but there's really not a whole lot to them. And despite the fact that I did thought that the concept was fairly interesting, unfortunately, a lot of the action scenes were really not that exciting. Also, just with the way how they did the ending, it just really wasn't all that satisfying. I don't know, it seems like I'm kinda shitting on this one a lot, but here's the thing though, I don't think this is like one of the worst animes ever, not by a long shot. But it really isn't anything all that great, it's just average and just kinda mediocre, so knowing this, it's kinda hard for me to recommend this one. Like, maybe I could recommend it if you were, like, a huge fan of cyberpunk and you got tired of watching, like, Wicked City and Demon City Shinjuku, like, over and over and over again, and you haven't seen this one, then maybe I would say it's worth a watch. I mean, at least it's short, and it's not bad enough to the point where you would, like, start losing brain cells. So it's forgettable, but also inoffensive. And speaking of that, I have a feeling this is going to be one of those animes where, like, after watching it once and many years later, I'm going to forget all about it, and then I'll see it again, and then I'll watch it, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen this shit already. So yeah, it's pretty average, but the one good thing that did come out of this, though, is that not only did I really like the art direction, though, but I do kind of want to check out the manga series now. For that, I'm sure that the art in it is also just as good, and I'm also pretty sure that the story in it will just be a whole lot better. And finally, I'll end this one off in saying that yes, Twilight of the Dark Masters is indeed a lot better than any of the Twilight movies.